And once again, we all gather around the old microphone and talk golf for close to an hour. And for 10 years, people seem to like this kind of nonsense. And that's why we get together to talk golf and, have a fellowship, commune with one another. It's Golf Spiritual Leader, of course, and my partner of nearly a decade, Coach Tim O'Connor. Tim, what a pleasure it is to see you again, and in your coaching beauty. You're resplendent in your coaching, in your coaching.
Yeah, thank you. It's I'm humbled to be in the presence of your excellency in a pixelated way, but we'll take what we can get to be here.
When you have this kind of spirituality that only Golf Spiritual Leader has,
eminence, it's eminence, really.
Appreciate it. Listen, we got a big show to get to. Before we get started, a couple things quickly. We have had, I think, one entry. We'll read it today. We're going to read your emails. humblehoward@gmail.com is how you get a hold of us. If you want to enter for a Silver Wax prize package, it's a Canadian-made company that makes great car care products. They're a sponsor of the Humble and Fred Show, and so I've got a bunch of extra kits. We're going to give away some to our Swing Thoughts listeners. All you have to do is identify the company that wanted nothing to do with us, to the point where we tried for months and months and months. Kept trying to whatever it comes after snubbed, like aggressive amount of snubbing.
Is snub too gracious a word? Do we need a word that has more sort of vehemence in it? More grit?
If you want it, yay. Listen, on the street, this is what we'd say. We would say, those guys is fucking with us. But
disrespect. They
had no respect for Swing Thoughts, no respect for, you know what, and if I can just say this on a personal note, it's not about Tim and I. They're snubbing the Swing Thoughts audience, okay? That's it. Tim, that's who the real victims are. That's who the real victims are here. The STDs. It's not for Tim and I getting free clubs. I mean, that's a side bonus. It's about the listeners, Tim. The listeners and the fact that they weren't going to get access to these clubs, which are no longer of interest to us, unless
that's it. Yeah, because we stand in service for them. It's not about us, because we read the book and we don't take anything personally. At least we don't admit it.
Last week, our clue was this company makes expensive game performance clubs. And the guess we had so far is incorrect. But I'll tell you what, we're going to read once our guest is finished pontificating, because we have a big guest today. We'll talk more about this company. I haven't come up with a clue, because if the problem with this company is it's so easily identified. Anyway, we'll get to all of that. But first, Tim, there's like a thing they do on Saturday Night Live. Like, some of the biggest hosts have been on like 3 and 4 and 5 times. Steve Martin, John Hamm, Tom Hanks, etc. Well, we're about to see and talk to another guy that's probably, I would say, not the most frequent, but one of our most frequent contributors.
Definitely one of. Yeah.
Probably making his fifth appearance. He is a executive coach of some renown. Has worked with some of the biggest sports teams in North America. He worked with the Detroit Red Wings. He is a speaker. He goes around the world doing seminars and these kind of things. And then a few years ago, he decided he wanted to be a scratch golfer, and made that happen after the age of 50. His original book, Play Like Ray, has been turned into a Hallmark movie. And it's weird because it's been turned into a Hallmark movie set at Christmas time. We don't know why, but he's changed the name. You want to talk about your book's name? He's changed the name of his book so many times that even he's lost track. But most recently, I think he calls it Scratch Attitude or some cockamamie made up nonsense. Say hello once again to the eminent part of the Birdie Zotvog Club. He is the Boomala, Kent Osborne.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Wow.
There you go. Hey, man.
Hey,
You're going to
Golf
play
isn't
golf
easy.
today.
you know,
You're going to play golf today?
yeah. My wife and I are teeing it up at a local little par 64, and absolutely pumped
Yeah.
to get going.
Yeah, I'm. You didn't hear what I said because we were talking at the same time, but I said golf isn't easy, and as we've all found out over the years. But quickly for you people who haven't heard your story, if you can, like you didn't start really playing serious golf until you were how old? 50 years old?
50 years and 6 months. Before that, I had probably played maybe had the clubs in my hand maybe 5, 6 times in my life.
And how long? And you're now people can just know this. You're just turned 70.
Yep.
You look great, keeping yourself in good shape. I've seen you hit a golf ball. We played some indoor golf this year, which is weird, but Kent still hits it at a pretty good speed. Makes a lot of club head speed. Is that realistic for people to turn 50 and then decide they're going to be a scratch golfer? You got to scratch.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess you could say if I've done it, anybody could do it. But what guys tell me is that it's pretty rare. Guys that have been around the game all their lives. I mean, the one of the things I had was the opportunity to play a fair bit because I was semi-retired from the time I was 50. So that helped the cause for sure. And I had a little bit of athletic ability as a kid, but I think just loving the game and thinking about it a lot, and creating my little scratch attitude approach has.
Well, that's what I wanted to sort of start with that because you physically got good at the game, but when did it occur to you that some of the stuff you've been working on as a sort of a mental performance coach, as a guy that worked with executives that gives seminars and talks, when did it occur to you that there was more to the game than the physical part of it?
I'd say maybe 5, 6 years in, like when I started, one of the first things I noticed, I mean, when I began, I'm trying to figure out what the hell a bag drop was. I didn't know anything, but it occurred to me very quickly that, a lot of guys who were in love with the game weren't in love with their game. There was a lot, and it seemed like the better the player, the harder it was for that person to have fun, just go out and enjoy it. So me starting so late, I'm thinking to myself, hey man, you've got no illusions that you're ever going to be a pro or you're ever going to be really good at this game. So just go out and enjoy it. But when I got to the point where I could break 90, shoot in the mid 80s, I start to fall into the same traps as everybody else did. And I kind of went, wait a minute here. Like, I'm not paying to go out and get frustrated or be anxious. I mean, this is crazy. So fortunately for me, I was able to lean on a lot of my coaching experience and more specifically the whole field of emotional intelligence, which is really something that's happened maybe in the last 15 years or so, and helped me understand that there was a distinction between, in my mind at least, there's a distinction between the mental game and the emotional game. I mean, they're both interwoven, but I think mainstream golf psychology sees the mental game, or sees your emotions as a subset of the mental game or an element of the mental game. Whereas for me, they're both equal. And so that was, I think that really helped in a big way.
For everybody, there seems to be a moment or two or three in which we kind of have, we'll call it the come to Jesus moment. We just sort of have this realization that, oh my God, I'm going.
Or in our case, come to Howard, but
There you go. Exactly.
I say, speak for yourself. My people call it a come to Moses moment, but that's because, the OG. Anyways, please continue.
Sorry for being member of the dominant culture. There you go.
Well, I didn't know you were Muslim. Please continue.
Oh, well done, sir. Was there a moment or two in which you can remember a memory? Maybe you've done something in which you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, like, do you have a story to share about a moment, if you will, or two?
A moment in terms of, hitting the ball, or a moment in terms of,
Realizing that what you're doing makes no sense, that you were falling into the trap of, as you say.
well, the first moment that comes to mind was a physical moment. So I start golf and I go take a lesson from this guy. And I think I took 3 lessons. And when I was taking the lesson, he tossed up an image of Aaron. He videoed my swing, and then he tosses up an image of Aaron Badley. And he got me to get into these, put the ball in a certain place and do this. And I went like 3 years, and I couldn't drive the ball 200 yards. And I'm trying my ass off to do what this guy told me to do. And then the aha moment was, I'm playing with this friend of mine, and he was an excellent iron player. And from my perspective, I mean, he hit it far, he hit it high. I mean, I couldn't get my irons above, hardly over head height. And finally, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna start to do what this guy does and see if it works. And that's when I started exploring with being more creative with my swing. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way to go if you were a young prodigy and you're trying to get yourself on the PGA Tour. But for me, it was really, really good to start being more creative, doing more exploring. Like, what happens if I set up this way? What happens if I do that? What happens if I do that? And that was the first thing that started me becoming a quote unquote better player.
So as you became a better player, and I would open this up also for Tim to comment on it, as you became a better player physically, and maybe this is where Tim was kind of going with you, what put you over the, not the edge, but what got you to, you say you got to single digits, you started breaking 80 pretty consistently, but as we all know, there's a long way from like a 6 handicap to a 0 handicap or a 1 handicap, whatever you got to. So was there a point where you realized that it wasn't just about mastering the physicality? And did you and then start, sort of invoking some of your scratch attitude tenets?
Yeah, it was probably the first tournament I played at the club. I can remember I decided I'm going to play in the club championship. And up in that time, I had not played in a tournament. I'm probably like, I don't know, 8-9 years into my quote unquote journey with golf. And so I'm teeing it up with guys that I know. And I had a hard time putting the tee in my ball up. I was so nervous. I was shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I, at numerous times, shit the bed with shots that were just like, where the hell did that come from? And then, so that was when it really, really struck me that, you know what, if you're going to play this game in a way that maximizes your ability to enjoy it and maximizes your ability to play it reasonably to your potential, then you're going to have to look inward, because there's a lot to this. And I didn't really get that fully when I was only playing casual golf. With the casual golf thing, I wanted to enjoy myself, but you really, really, it shone a light on it when I won the first tournament that I played.
Yeah. I'm going to latch on to that word. You looked inward. And I want to sort of dive in and learn what you mean by that, because most of what I think golfers are trying to do is based on what they see externally. They read books about you're supposed to do this, don't do this. And of course, you've got this tsunami of video coming at people, YouTube, etc. And most of it is like, this is what you're supposed to do. Match the model. This is what the way Tiger does it. This is the way whatever, whoever you admire. And you're supposed to do it this way, which to me is taking an external experience someone else has had or other people have and trying to do it yourself. So how did you square that sort of inward experience with everything else that comes at you externally?
Well, I think it's kind of similar on the inward side, because you're supposed to think the way Bob Rotella tells you to think. And not that anything that Bob Rotella has said or written is quote unquote wrong, but it doesn't necessarily fit for me. Like, for example, you know, I think that the pre-shot routine is, I mean, it's called a routine, but it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be spontaneous, subconscious. It's supposed to be so habitual that it's just like, you're not even thinking about it. You're not thinking about, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do before I putt. You're just doing it. And one of the things I learned from coaching was that some people tend to process information visually. Some people tend to process information auditorily, and some people tend to process information more from a sensory point of view. And there's a couple of really great examples of that. Like, if you, there's a clip from Tiger Woods when he's trying to hit a wedge shot, 120 yards or whatever. And I think it's a Golf Now clip that's available online. And in that clip, if you watch it for a minute, he uses the word feel over 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
And he's using his hand, he's moving his hand. Every time he says feel, he's moving his hand. He talked about, my dad wanted me to get my feel. I get my feel. I get my feel. I get my feel. So he's mostly on the feel side. If you read Jack Nicklaus's book, it's all about mental movies. I create the picture. I see the picture. I see the ball doing this. I see myself doing that. For me, I tend to be an auditory guy. I don't make pictures in my head very easily, and I don't really, connect with the whole sensory thing very easily. But I tend to process information around what I hear, around saying things to myself. So for me, my pre-shot routine, to make it smooth, to make it easy, is more about me coaching myself or talking to myself than it is about trying to picture the perfect shot or trying to get the right feel. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's kind of what I did on my inner journey, was basically try to figure out, okay, what fits for me, what makes sense for me, both on the mental side and on the emotional side.
Well, what I think you're drawing on is something that our friend Carl Morris has said a number of times, is that there's no the way to do it, but there is your way to do it. But most people don't look inward, or they don't trust their own experience. It's they got to match some kind of model. But of course, it has such a big influence. I mean, oh, this is what Tiger says. Oh, I guess it must be true. Or, David Ledbetter says this, or Bob Rotella, pick whatever one you want. So that, to me, is the hardest part, I think, for a lot of people, is to say, like, I have an experience. It has value. It is real to me. So the hard part, I think, for a lot of people is being able to trust themselves enough to pay attention to what's going on, rather than get caught up in, am I doing this the right way?
Well, it all comes back, from my point of view, it all comes back to your purpose. See, I'm on the golf course to experience play. I'm not on the golf course to perform. That's, and obviously I'm trying to hit targets and blah, 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 but I'm just trying to get into that play mode. I want to experience the joy of play.
And by the way, if I can just jump in, I can attest to what Kent's saying, because I've been on the golf course with Kent when the chaos has shown up. I was going to say, yes, I know you're not there to perform, because I was with you in Oshawa.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we've also experienced we've definitely experienced the agony of defeat, but we did experience some success together. But back to you, like, before we get too deep into the woods of the minutia of whether you should have a pre-shot routine or whether you shouldn't, there is a school of psychology that says you shouldn't be talking to yourself in your head while you're trying to hit a golf shot or before you're trying to hit a golf shot. But again, it's to each his own. A lot of coaches, the Swedish ladies, Pia, what's her face? They talk about
Pia Nilsson.
Yeah, they talk about the play line and the think line and the play line.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the takeaway though is whatever works for you. And
Yes.
I really like what Tim said about a lot of golfers are afraid to trust what they discover, what they learn about their own swing and how it works and how they respond in certain situations. Because as you say, Timmy, because we're always comparing ourselves to some unrealistic model that only exists in our fantasy. And a lot of us would just be better off to just notice. And that's what I think you were getting at, to notice what works for you.
Here's a true confession, brothers, that I've never shared with anyone else.
Tell me. This is a safe space for you, Kent.
We're listening. We're listening. We support you.
I use 3 different in my mind. It works best for me if I'm hitting an 8 iron on down. It works best for me if I set up really open. I try to think like Lee Trevino. If I'm using you know, a 7, I use a lot of hybrids, as Howard knows, but if I'm using my 7 hybrid through my woods, I'm basically setting up square. And if I'm hitting driver, I'm setting up closed with my feet sprayed, you know, and to me, that works better for me. And so the idea of one swing, yeah, you know, it worked all right for a guy named Jack Nicklaus, but guess what? It didn't work for me. So that's something that I do.
But that
I
goes
just kind of evolved to that.
Yeah,
point.
and that kind of goes to what we're saying, and that I think Tim was hinting at, which is, you know, like ultimately we have to swing our own swings. It's what we are. And yeah, you know, it's fun to practice and it's fun to work on different things and stack and tilt and this and that. But ultimately, like, I was dicking around with a friend of mine on Monday in a simulator, and I just started hitting. I said, "Oh, I'm just going to hit this." I was hitting 7 irons. I hit a little draw shot. I couldn't tell you exactly what I did, but I knew I could draw that. Same with I'm going to hit it, a little bit of a cut. Felt like the face was open a bit. Ultimately, I had no thoughts in those swings about how I should be doing it. More about, like, since I was a kid, I've always just known how to do that. And I think more of us would enjoy the game, more of the game, if we sort of felt a little bit more natural. I'm not sure if that's what you were going after, Tim, but there's a naturalness to golf that sometimes I think we forget about.
Yeah, I think that what I notice with most people I play with or I coach is that they're bamboozled by the white thing, the ball at their feet. It's like it's a hypnotic thing. And what they lose track of is that actually that's not the target. The ball is not the target. The target is the target, whether you're trying to hit out to, you know, into a fairway, you're trying to hit to a green or to the hole. And there's a freedom there when you connect to the target that I think a lot of people lose. But I did want to make a comment. In some ways, Kent, you're being able to become a scratch player, taking up the game relatively late is both kind of amazing, but in a way, to me, also makes sense because you had this history of being around athletes. You coached the Red Wings, you saw things, you had some athletic ability. So I think what you're also showing is that it takes maturity to understand some of these things and some experience. And so I think you saw some things and went, like when I was younger, I was always trying to do the right thing, like for 20, 30 years, set up the right way, swing the right way. And it wasn't until I got like older that I went, well, this really isn't serving me in a number of parts of my life. So the other part is that maturity, but also having the idea of a sense of purpose. What am I doing? As you switch from sort of this activity around forging identity, earning money, and then in second half of life, so much of it is finding purpose. So I don't know, speak to becoming an old codger and what you learned in the idea of purpose.
Yeah, well, you know, part of having a purpose that's, you know, to go out and enjoy the experience of play is you're able to say, fuck it. Like, who cares how I look? no one's going to look at me in the range and be going, wow, or no one's going to look at me for hitting a 7 hybrid and going like, oh, you're not using a blade, you're using a 7 hybrid. What the hell's what? Like, so I'm able to say, what the hell? I'll try anything,
Mm-hmm.
and if it produces a decent result and I'm enjoying it, then I'm going to run with it. And if the best players in Ontario look at me a little strange, well, guess what? I'm not part of that club. I never have been.
Yeah,
Probably never will be.
but I think as we age, those things become less and less vital to our identities. And, the irony of all of this, though, is that the word play, or by being more natural and by, and by reacting to the sport versus trying to wrestle it to the ground all the time, which is one of the things that, I, as a younger GSL, found very, very frustrating.
Stages of GSL.
When GSL was just a little boy, a little Jewish boy from Moose Jaw before I ascended, it was tough times out there for the kids. I want to get a couple. So we've established that you have all these, you've developed these skills, but you brought up Rotella, and you and I have talked about Rotella, and we talked about all the major gurus of the mental world. And what do you think? Hearkening, I love the word hearken. I like to hearken back now to 2 weeks ago. What do you guys think? We'll start with Kent, but I'm curious about Tim too. What do you think Rotella has been working on with Rory McIlroy that may have helped him get past probably the most pressure I've ever seen a golfer under and prevailed? Ken, what do you think? What if you had to imagine, or maybe it's, well, so what do you imagine they worked on, and what are the kind of things you would work on with him?
Well, it would have been very different with me and Rotella. I think Rotella is a guy who's into cognitive behavioral therapy. If you read his books, it's very much about the quality of your thinking. He makes the odd reference to the subconscious mind, but for the most part, it's, if you can align your thinking in a way with what you want, you'll eventually get there. So I'm much more a believer in the power of belief. And so whatever Rotella did with Rory, in my opinion, wasn't as powerful as Rory's beliefs just naturally shifting because of age. And what I mean by that is, I think Rory was brought up too well. He was brought up in a way that really valued family. And from my perspective, he gets this incredible success very, very early. People start talking about him as the next Tiger Woods. He starts to hang around with Tiger. And I remember him being interviewed and basically saying, you know what? I don't want that. If I had a choice between winning like 10 majors and having his Michael Jackson life where he can't go to the grocery store, I don't want that. So my sense of it is that Rory struggled in the last 10 years with a belief. On the one hand, he would want to be and win more majors. But on the other hand, at a belief level, there's a part of him that didn't want that. Again, from my perspective, your beliefs function the way a 5-6-year-old child would function. There's a logic to them, but they're not necessarily as fully adult sophisticated. So I think that Rory got to the point where, as he's older now, even if he was to end up with 12 majors, he's never going to be in that Tiger level. He's never going to be within golf, yes, but he's not going to be that global. There's Michael Jackson, there's Tiger, there's Michael Jordan, there's Muhammad Ali, global icon thing. And I think that got him to the point where, as opposed to being at a belief level, maybe 80-20 for the last 10 years, his beliefs got to be like 60-40. I want it, I really don't want it. And you could argue that that's what you saw in the final round. You saw a guy hitting shots that were absolutely incredible on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, there was.
So that would be. I would have I would have worked with him at a belief level.
So Timmy,
But
what do you think?
That's all.
What do you think Rotella was working on with him? Answer that first.
I think it was mainly around what is going on in your head right now and having awareness of like not getting caught in a story or a situation. I think that was part of what was behind his not talking to Bryson. Because when I talk to somebody, I'm going to ping off what they say. I don't care who you are. You could be GSL level of consciousness, but if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm going to think of things about what they say and generally project my own experience on what's going on for them. So I think that was part of it. So to me, that's around awareness. What's going on? What am I thinking about? And so I remember after the round Sunday, Rory had a thought, maybe once, maybe twice, that this could be slipping away. So I think that what he worked with Rotella was around like, how do you become aware you're having the thought, but then switch out of that and just take care of business? Because I think what's happened with Tiger many times, it showed up in his short game and missing short putts and whatnot, is that
Talking about Tiger or Rory?
Rory. Sorry, did I say Tiger?
He said
Rory.
Tiger. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, so I think that he's been getting in his head, and I've watched this over the years, just the emotional roller coaster he rides. And I have that a sense of what if things are going well, he's thinking he's feeling good in his body, and he's got that little pep in his step, a little spring. And then when it's not going well, he's like, he goes down into a trough, and I think he loses adrenaline, he loses energy, and loses focus, maybe
Yes,
loses
buoyancy
connection.
definitely gets affected.
Yeah. And he loses connection to that club. And I think that Rory, I mean, I remember one time Rory saying that, he's playing, and yes, of course, he hits the ball at freaking 1,000 miles. People go, well, that's because of your hip turn. And Rory goes, really? I never looked at my hip turn before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he just did these things. So, but I think it takes some awareness of like, of what's going on. What am I thinking about? What's my energy level? And that awareness of where I'm at, he's able to thus respond when things aren't going well. Like, when he put in the creek on 13, I think that was I think down the line, we're going to hear more about what happened in his head after that. But I think did that, and then how do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, it is a master class. It was a master class in a great model for us all in resilience. And we talked a little bit about this in the last couple episodes, Kent, about, like all golfers, whether you're playing in the final round of the Masters or your Saturday morning game with your buddies, there are moments in a round when we all feel like giving up or have felt like giving up.
Yeah.
But that, all those shots we saw that day, and very interesting the way you put it, Kent, like it was it was emblematic or symbolic or was metaphorical of who he is as a guy. Like, he can hit the most amazing shots, but then also hit some shots like, did he really want to win the Masters? Yeah. Like, who knows what the subconscious is? For me, when I thought that Rotella and Rory might have been talking about over the last few years, and I agree with both of you, parts of that, but I think with Rotella, it's like some mental, and we've had this discussion on the show before, the three of us, but I believe some mental performance enhancement is better than nothing, whether you believe that Rotella is the way or not. At least for me, 1995 was a huge year for me because that's when I read his first book. It made a huge difference to me. Mm-hmm. It made me see that there might be a different way or a different part of golf that I wasn't really aware of. So however we all came together, for me and a lot of people, Rotella was ground zero. Now, I believe that it's moved on from him. I don't think he's the current model anymore, because I think the model includes more meditative, more awareness, more subconscious. I agree with all that.
Yeah, that's well said.
But I think whatever he talked about with Rory, finally ultimately it's a Rory, Sorry.
Well, the other thing, it reminds me of I was doing with the Red Wings when Bowman came in, and to me there was just playing for Bowman made a difference because I think the guys felt that, you know, they could win with him. And I think that just being with Rotella as opposed to Joe Blow. Now, Joe Blow, the local therapist, might be a better therapist than Rotella ever thought of being. But Rotella's worked with what, 10, 20 major winners? And I think that was also a factor.
Yep.
Again, I think it comes back to belief. I'm working with one of the best guys here, and I think that does have an effect. But I really connected with what you're saying about Rory growing up in a very, we'll say, solid family and recognizing the importance of that. And I think what's interesting is how that does come out unconsciously. I don't think Rory was ready to sacrifice what it would take to be at sort of Tiger level. But it's interesting too, when you square it against Jack Nicklaus, really comes across, he always came across as the family man. He didn't stay on the road too long, and yet he was still able to get it done. I mean, winning 18 majors, which is still the record. But it's just really interesting how these, I don't know, these belief systems come from so much of when we were kids and what we saw. And a lot of times we don't know what's going on until we get older. We don't really know. Why have I always had this story? Why, when I'm presented with this opportunity, I maybe turn the other way? And I think that's part of the thing, again, getting back to this maturity thing, is starting to understand yourself a little bit more. And so I think it'd be so fascinating to watch Rory down the road now in terms of what goes on.
Well, he has said that he's he feels like he's playing with house money now, and that could get scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say something about belief. I know in my own journey, and not that it's in any way comparable to what, you know, the pros or Rory are doing, but it's comparable in the sense that winning a club championship was important to me, and I know that I, at a deep level, I didn't believe I was worthy of that, and that's something that you know, haunted my hockey career as a kid. And I thought it was over and done with, and, you know, came home to roost again when I started playing tournament golf. And my sense is that attempting to do some work on that, to face that and to deal with it, helped my cause. So if you're someone out there who is wondering why you just, you know, can't get over in the hump in a club championship situation. Not that you're going to do it all the time. I think I've talked to Howard before, but I have a model that's like, I believe I'm going to play bad golf, okay golf, good golf, and great golf over the course of a season. And if my beliefs are not aligned with my potential, I'll only be able to access bad, okay, and good.
Right.
My very best golf will be at arm's length from me.
Well, and I think what I love about that, because again, we've had this discussion, and what I like about it is also, it's, you know, the way that, you know, they talk, we've been talking a lot on the Humble and Fred show about the financial markets. And one of our guys that's a contributor talks about, you can't average, let's say, you know, the conventional wisdom is you want to average, say, 7 or 8%, a nice return on your investments every year. But you can't average 8% by getting 20% every year. You have to have years where you're lower so that you can average it. And it kind of goes to what you're saying about most golfers just think they should always be playing at the same high level. I'm guilty of that. We all are from time to time. It doesn't allow for all the other quite, you know, likely outcomes. And by the way, that description of poor, average, good, great, that's in every round of golf.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
yeah.
It's like, you know, our buddy Marty Chuck said once, he said, you know, you got to be prepared when you're going to play that there's going to be a moment or two where you're playing great for 2 or 3 holes, you're struggling for 2 or 3 holes, you're having an average round, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's, for a lot of golfers, if they go into this season, which is beginning in Ontario imminently, remembering that, because I think as golfers we forget that, there's certain holes that don't fit our eyes. There are certain moments in rounds where it's like, did I forget how to swing? There's drivable par fours that two guys with one handicaps can't make better than double bogey on. I'm looking at you and me, Ken Osborne.
Yeah, but my double bogey though was reasonable. Yours was like, what the hell is he doing?
I have an idea. Next time, let's both not try and drive the green. Anyway,
not very good. Not very good strategy there.
Terrible.
There you go.
Terrible, terrible strategy.
Ken, I like that.
Was a double bogey.
Are you guys done trying to heal each other?
Yes,
okay?
we're done.
Can we move on?
I thought it was blame each other, but anyway.
Okay. I liked what you said so much. I wrote it down. If my beliefs are not aligned with my potential, I forget how you finished that, but here's where I am with that is, so many golfers when they find themselves, not very often, but occasionally in the zone, if you will. Yeah. And just golf seems easy and hitting these shots, and in some ways they wonder, where did that come from? Did the golf gods sprinkle me with some magic dust for a couple holes or for 9 or whatever? And it's almost like there's something mysterious happened to them rather than they just got a glimpse of what they can do. They did that. And that's what's possible for them, as opposed to this is some mysterious thing that as if, an alien bestowed it upon me. So,
well, I would say both are true. From my point of view, it is something that's possible for you, and there's an element of mystery to it. If there wasn't an element of mystery to it, then then Bob Rotella or somebody would have figured out the absolute formula, and these guys on tour would go out and shoot 62, 63 every bloody time they teed it up.
But isn't that what the golf world does? It says, if you do this, you'll solve your problems mentally, you'll solve your problems emotionally, you'll solve your swing. And so that is the mystery. And I think that the thing is the mystery is that we've already got what we're looking for.
Yeah.
This gets back to the earlier conversation that you found within yourself through your own exploration, through your own ability to trust your experience, that was okay. And that's part of what I would say, delving into that mystery of the unconscious or what the body's capable of. But that's such a hard thing for the overwhelming majority of people to do, because they have the stories about themselves, the belief, I'm not good enough. I started golf late. I'm not athletic. Oh, this is not what the pros are saying to do. That's
I think
so much of the struggle.
I think the culture of the game, is the culture of the pro game is not good for the average player. And I've talked about this before in the sense that if I was still playing beer league softball at the same level that I'm playing golf, in other words, that I'd be a good local beer league softball player. Yeah. And I turned around and said, I've got an opportunity to work with a batting coach who used to work with the Blue Jays, and it's going to cost me $100 an hour. People would think I'm completely crazy.
Oh, I know.
But with golf, so, yeah.
By the way, my buddy Al, who listens to the show, has given me one of my favorite phrases of 2025, because we were talking about, what we spend on golf. I don't know all of our wives know exactly what we spend on golf, but my buddy Al's phrase is, golf has no budget. Golf has no budget is my favorite thing, because, seriously, forget investments. If I just had the money I spent on golf back, I'd been retired in my early 50s, too, KO.
I had no opportunity to play golf this winter. And I bought new clubs, a new golf watch. I've got literally 25 boxes of balls.
Here's the thing. You may know, listeners know that we don't have our TaylorMade sponsor anymore. So for the first time in a decade, I've been unleashed to go and explore other options. Well, I bought a lab putter, the one you see I don't even want to tell you how much it was. I'll tell you that story.
Okay.
And I got a new Titleist driver. But listen, we got to wrap up. In the end, I think we learned a lot again today. But I was going to say, in the end, I think the big KO takeaway for me, and maybe you, Tim, but is that experience in golf on a personal level, like trusting that you have some ability, some innate ability to let it kind of come out through the pursuit of the joy of the game is one of my favorite lessons from you.
Yeah.
That really, once you prioritize what it is you're trying to do, and what I've put into my practice since we've known each other, especially the last couple of years, season of balance, by the way, this is year 2 of the season of balance, but is the idea that I'm going to go out and play golf tomorrow. And I don't know if it's going to be my last time.
Yeah.
And so I am now very aware. Maybe it's turning, 65. I know that compared to you two, that's like a child. But I think that part of it is I don't know when my final round's going to be.
Yeah.
So I am not wasting any more time, as competitive as I am, on not making joy and the pursuit of enjoyment my priority when I play.
Well, you've got something that you've taught me. It's a line that I really like, or a question, and it's basically, okay, are you here to practice or are you here to play?
Right.
And if you're here to play, you're not out there trying to find positions on the 4th hole.
No. That's true. Like, you decide if you're going to play golf, then go play golf. Don't practice when you practice.
Yeah.
And or if you're going out for a round later in the day, or you're hanging out just dicking around and you want to practice then practice.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it's hard to do both at the same time. And that's where I think, I'm not sure if Tim would agree, but I would have assumed that when you're out there doing both, looking at positions and practicing, trying to, to be perfect, which gets us back to Rotella, it's not a game of perfect. It's a game of play. That's what his book should have been called. Golf is not a game of perfect, ... It's a game of play.
Yeah. Well, I love all that from you guys. The piece that I'm going to connect with is that idea, and what it connects to what you were just saying, is around purpose. What's my purpose? And I think it's when you're aligned and you know what your purpose is, it helps us get out of those swamps. And we all get in them, hit some bad shots, boom, down I go, feeling crappy, bunch of different thoughts. I suck. I'll always suck. And then wait a second. What's my purpose here? Why am I out here? And I think when I'm aligned with my purpose, it allows me to stay on my course to head to my North Star, rather than getting distracted and riding that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got it figured out, boys.
Yes, my
we're
friend.
we're going to absolutely light it up this summer.
I can't wait. We're not ending the show. We're just going to end the segment. Kent Osborne, you can still follow him as we do at Scratch Attitude on X. And we're all waiting nervously when the next book is coming out. It's been written and rewritten so many times. It really will. It's going to change the game forever.
It's going to be Moby Dick level. That's all I can say.
That's right. The first line is, "Call me Ishmael if you want." Listen, Kent, always a pleasure, my friend. It's great talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, my
Take
friend.
care.
There's Kent Osborne.
Thanks, Kent. We'll
making
connect
his,
soon.
Another great appearance on this program. Listen, before we get finished, we've got a couple things to get through. One is an email, and one is a clue. Okay, here's my clue, by the way, for the Silver Wax prize package. It's so dumb. So remember, we're doing this because we felt slighted.
Disrespected.
But it's not us. Remember, we're not doing this for us.
Oh, that's right.
doing-
It's our faithful listeners.
It's for the STDs.
We're standing up for them.
Right. By not sponsoring this show, you have disrespected all the STDs and not given us free clubs. But it's not for us.
No.
So
no, heavens,
here-
no.
Here is today's clue. This company's commercials feature an annoying guy yelling. Is that too much of a clue?
Depends. Some people might think Jim Nance is annoying.
No.
I don't think so.
How could you think Jim Nance is annoying?
I don't know.
this is a
Everyone has their own.
commercial.
Everyone has their own perspective.
I know, but Jim Nance. How dare you?
Sorry. Okay. I know. He's a saint.
So this company's commercial, because I know Jim Nance is the voice of like Pro V's or something.
Exactly.
But this company's commercials
The voice
feature
of
one guy just yelling. Okay? So let's see if you can get that one. humblehoward@gmail.com. This is an email, and it's from Brian Baker. And his subject line is non-sponsor guests. I'm sorry. He says, "Hi, Howard. My guest on the A-Hole Company is Performance Golf." I don't know who they are. Do we know who they are? I don't know who they are.
I don't know who they are.
Brian goes on to say, probably wrong, but more or less wanted to email you to thank you and Tim for your show. By the way, that's always welcomed and encouraged.
Absolutely.
If you want to be like Brian and just send us an email and say, I love your show. Brian goes on to say, I've really enjoyed listening to you for the last 2 years. This game can drive a person insane. But hearing yourself and Tim's take on the insanity and how to better try and manage it is so refreshing. I've read Tim's, this is my favorite part.
Ooh.
He goes, he says, I've read Tim's book on the 7 best crockpot soup recipes. He says, I've read the 7 best crockpot soup recipes recently, and all jokes aside, has been very helpful, Tim.
Oh, nice.
I apologize for being under the iron fist of Orange Hitler, because this guy's an American. I apologize for being under the iron fist of Orange Hitler, and hopefully we Americans cannot be embarrassing again. MALE should be the new hat. Make America less embarrassing, which is really funny.
That is good. My God.
Yeah, he goes on to say, as a veteran, I can say I'm not impressed, happy with what's going on and how it's impacting the whole world. One last thing. This is to me. Your most recent appearance on Carl Morris's podcast last fall, I think he says, was awesome. Your honesty and openness made me think about my choices and helped me drastically cut back on drinking, and I feel great, says Brian. I've listened to that episode a handful of times because it's inspiring. Well, isn't that the nicest thing anyone can say? And
that is awesome.
It. Yes.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. Didn't mean to be. It's so funny. I remember going on that show, and you had gone on, made an appearance a few weeks or months before I did, and then Carl asked me, and I really didn't know, like you've got a book and a platform, and I'm just some guy. But the conversation...
You're the GSL. You're the GSL.
I know, but not everyone knows that. So when he asked me to be on the show, I thought, okay, I was a little nervous, to be honest with you. I'm like, this is Carl Morris. What am I going to talk to him about? Even though I know him well enough. And then the conversation turned to drinking and using whatever methods to overcome that. And yeah, it was a great conversation if you want to look it up. Speaking of Carl, he's coming to town.
Yeah, I heard he's coming to. I know that he's going to Toronto Golf Club, and we've talked to him. And I think, we're talking about getting together, playing a round of golf, and all kinds of dinner and all that stuff. I mean, it's going to be fun.
Well, and not only is it going to be great, but I think we should get him back prior to him coming to town. So maybe maybe anyone, if they have a chance to go and visit with him, or I don't know, is he doing just one seminar, or is that it?
Oh, I imagine he's doing a bunch. You just don't fly across the pond for one. I don't know what else he's doing, but I know he's at Toronto Golf Club. As we get the details, we'll share those. Right. But what was I going to say? I think that we should get Carl into the Humble and Fred studios and do really just do a good long chat with him in the studio.
Well, it's not as easy as it once was, but I can make it happen. I got enough. I probably have enough microphones. It's not set up the way it used to be, but you know what?
That's right.
But to your point, this studio is only 10 minutes away from Toronto Golf, so maybe we could all work it out so that there was an opportunity for us to do an interview with him live from here.
I thought maybe your resistance was around that you might have to tidy up and vacuum or something.
I got people to do that. So, Tim O'Connor's book is called 7 Mindfulness Practices. It's called Getting Unstuck, everybody. Go check it out, o'connorgolf.ca as well.
And Amazon.ca.
Yeah, and then check out
Uncom and etc.
and check out Tim's Substack. I do Substack. Also at O'ConnorGolf.ca. Humble and Fred Show. Find that everywhere you get podcasts. And once again, the clue: this company's spokesman, their television commercial speaker features just one guy yelling. So see if you can guess that. We'll give you a Silver Wax prize pack to get your car ready for eventual spring and summer. Tim, thanks very much. Great job today. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, and thanks to Ken Osborne. We'll see you all next week.